Everyone, really glad to see such a nice crowd here. Bereans coming out to speak your piece and say what you would like. I'm Truman Fields. I'm on the committee along with Diane Kirby and Billy Wagers. And we have a couple other gentlemen over here. That's Mr. Pena on the right. Would you stand up, please, wave? He's in charge, as you see on your program there. He's in charge of the human rights in Kentucky. And along with him is Jack Fisher. He's on the Commission for Human Rights. Both had a lot of experience, and we can use their input. Okay, if you look on your program here, we've got it up here also. We're going to try to follow that as closely as we can. Each person will get approximately 3 minutes to speak, and we'll have a yellow card. We'll hold something up when there's 10 seconds to go. When you come up to speak, we will all respect one another. Nobody's going to yell or shout or get out of line. If you do, I'll ask you to leave, okay? That's the ground rules. We don't need. I know this is very controversial. And the committee up here, our mind's not made up, or at least mine's not. We want to hear what you have to say, because we know you're just as important as anyone. It's your say, it's your city, so we want to hear what you have to say. And we will certainly respect you for that, and we will respect one another. We have the right to agree or to disagree. So let's keep everything under control. We don't want any problems here. Okay, that's the ground rules, and we'll start pretty soon with, you can walk up to the microphone here or over here at either side, and you'll have 3 minutes. And Diane, will you hold a card up or something approximately when it's about that time? Okay. All right, I guess we're just about ready to go. I want to recognize Mr. Little here. He's also on council, a very valuable person. We're glad to have him here. So glad to have all of you people here. Okay, we're just about ready to start.
Could I ask for a volunteer to do the timekeeping? I would like to focus my attention to hearing comments, and that would be very helpful to me.
You got a stopwatch?
Besides, I don't have a watch.
Anybody got a stopwatch here? Okay, okay, you can be the timekeeper. Come on up here, coming up in the front row, and you can help out.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Appreciate all the help we can get. Mr. Gilbert, the city attorney, is going to be a little late, but he will be here in case there's a legal question.
You want to walk?
Now, we do not have the answers. I want you to know that. You don't need to ask us questions. We do not have the answers. This meeting tonight is to hear your comments. You're going to be on TV. We've got an hour and a half. It's going to be shown tomorrow at 9, 12, 3, and 6 o'clock on Channel 12, or TV, so you can see yourself. So be respectful, folks. Look good. Comb your hair if you've got any hair at all. Okay.
Thanks, Truman.
Okay. I'd like to go first. Step right up here, and you may talk. We're not going to have. We need your name and your address. Identify yourself and give your address. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Hank Fay, and I live at 109 Bridge Avenue with my wife and 4 stepchildren. I moved to Berea in 2006. I'm Chief Technology Officer for a software company in Florida, and I had my choice of anywhere in the country I wanted to move because we work in a distributed fashion. And I picked Berea, and the reason I picked Berea was very simple. Berea was a town with with a long, long history of devotion to equality and tolerance. And I looked at all the other places I could have gone, and I said, you know, I've fought the good fight in a lot of places, but I think I'd like to go to a place where there are people like me. I haven't been disappointed. But I'm not here to tell you just that. I'm here to talk to you about my daughter, who is 33, who has a great job as chief expert in electronic litigation for a law firm with 250 lawyers in it. She's got a heart of gold. She's an incredible aunt to my 3 grandchildren. And if she came to Berea today, she could be discriminated against with regard to employment and housing. That's not right. So while you're hearing people talk about theories, I hope you'll keep Courtney in mind.
Thank you. Anyone, just be ready to go, folks, when your time comes. Step right up there. That little microphone's the one that works, the little one. It will pick you up. It'll pick your sound up. Mr. Davis, you want to say something?
My name's Kenny Davis. I'm a lifelong resident of Berea. As a member of this community, through the years I've taken great pride in the fact that Berea is a place where all people are treated fairly and equally. With that said, let me say that I firmly believe that the rights of all Americans are equally protected under the Constitution as well as a multitude of laws and ordinances. I also firmly believe that the political correctness expressed is out of control in our nation. Unfortunately, in many cases, in order to be part of this politically correct movement, reason is thrown out the window. A perfect example of this political correctness run amok was the State Department's decision in January 2011 to remove the words mother and father from our nation's passport application form and replace the words mother and father with the words parents, parent one and parent two. This change was by the White House's own admission in response to demands from the homosexual community. This proposed ordinance for the city of Berea that is being contemplated is for the very same reasons. I'm very confident in saying that each person in this room has a mother and a father, and I've never, quite frankly, met anyone who referred to their parents as parent one or parent two. Yet, in an attempt to appease those who are part of the homosexual community, our government has decided that it is politically correct and politically expedient to drop the title of mother and father in favor of parent one and parent two on this very important document. It would appear to me that not only is the homosexual community not being discriminated against, they are being accommodated, even to the point of the ridiculous. The proposed ordinance is not about fairness at all. It is about favoritism for a group of people who are part of an alternative lifestyle. I would end by saying that I realize that this council has an oftentimes difficult and thankless job, but I would also remind you that you have been elected to represent every citizen that makes up the Berea community, not just a select group of the population. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Appreciate that. Someone from this side want to talk, you can come to this mic right here. Go right ahead, sir. Identify yourself and your address.
My name is Tim Taylor. I represent Wayside Christian Church. I was born and raised in Berea. I live at 1822 Paint Lick Road. First of all, I'd like to say that this meeting, I think, is really an illegal meeting held because it's not duly advertised. I think the majority of people here read it by word of mouth instead of by the advertisement in the paper. But anyways, I think this meeting, this ordinance would create a special protected class with special rights. In this case, it necessitates the removal of the rights of others in order to accomplish this. The ordinance is based upon a sexual behavior and a flawed definition which continues to run based upon the sexual behavior. The First Amendment rights are being violated by the ability of a homosexual or advocate to make a claim against someone as hate speech, and which is not the case. KRS 344.300 is the current Kentucky state legislation in force with regard to discrimination. There is no need for a special protected class for homosexuals since gender definitions cover them. And like I said, I do respect the council and their decisions y'all have to make. They're tough decisions sometimes. And I think we all have lived without this ordinance that does set apart one certain group. And I think if you make one certain group, you have to make the ordinance for everybody else. So if you want to be fair about it, and I think you'll vote against this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What happens here is the three of us will have another meeting probably tomorrow or next day and decide if we should take it to council. Then if council wants to put it on the ballot, they can do that, and then it'll be up to them to vote one way or the other. Tonight, remember what we're doing is getting your opinion. We fully respect and honor your opinion, so it is appreciated. You are appreciated, all of you. Yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Osborne, and I have a petition tonight of at least 130 names or more that are against the favoritism or the what's our name here? Fairness ordinance. And I have, I've been in the community for a while too. Probably all of us here have, obviously. And the one thing I loved about Berea is it's just a beautiful town. Just, in short, it's a wonderful place. It's beautiful. It's not as high speed as a lot of other big cities. It doesn't have a lot of the troubles that a lot of the big cities do. And I read just recently, just within the last few months, that it was one of the most popular cities or towns in the U.S. for places for people to move to. As the gentleman said earlier, that he came here by choice. Others are doing that and wanting to do that. And I think one of the major reasons is when you look across our city, our town, you realize, man, hey, it's a good place. It's safe. It's the right kind of a place for families. We don't have a lot of radical activities that are going on. Some places, some people would call it a boring town, but it's not. It's an excellent place for families. And so I say that because as well, I'm not aware of intolerance. I'm not seeing people out causing trouble and screaming and saying hateful things. And I'm a pastor of a church here in town, Berea Evangelistic Church. And we're not out creating a rift and trying to cause trouble. Matter of fact, we want everybody to have a meal, everybody to have a place to stay, rent a house or an apartment, buy a house. I'm not aware of that as being a problem. I've not seen that. I'm not aware. This is news to me. I don't think this is really a fairness ordinance. I think it's more about favoritism, and it's really it's more of a reverse discrimination when you really think about it, because you're imposing the ideas of a few people upon the rights of others, and that really bothers me. I think I'm confident when we look at the Constitution that it is against that. And it's not going to help your people. All of your folks here, as Brother Kenny said already, there's already the ordinances, there's already the laws, there's already the things that are out there to protect any group, from being discriminated against. And so I'm totally against the idea of doing this. I think it's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt our community. It's going to hurt our families. It's not a good thing. I even read a little bit about on the Kentucky Fairness website. They talked about they labeled gender identity with this. And from what I understand about gender identity, it's a pretty radical, broad spread situation where if somebody is if it's a man and he dresses up like a woman, he can, then because of that, he's able to go into the ladies' restrooms and things. I don't think none of us want those kind of activities going on. I don't believe it's good for our environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your address, Mr. Osmond?
698 Fentress Lane.
I think you're right about the best city in the country. We could have retired anywhere, too, and the people in Berea are the greatest, I think.
Amen.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Martha Schaefer. I'm an old lady. Came here in '64, 73 years old. And I remember back in the late 60s when we went through this before. The whole thing. This number of people, week after week of discussions, not over a fairness ordinance at that point. It was rather that whether we wanted something official to outlaw homosexuals. You've got nothing to lose. Everybody has this fairness thing now. Every state, every county. There's only one thing that you have to lose in it. And that would be if you had more industry looking at the town to come in. And this is one of the things that they check to see that we have. And you're not going to get a thing that will create 300 jobs here if you don't have this. It's just a no-brainer. It isn't going to attract homosexuals any more than the 10% that now live in town. And yet, yes, there is nastiness, believe me, and I've seen it and heard it. So why don't we just send it to the council and see if the council, with the aid of Mr. Gilbert, can help you get rid of this whole thing and stop having meetings of people that there are too many here that we can't all sit down.
Thank you very much.
And do you want to know, I didn't give you my address?
We need your address.
221 Jackson Street.
Jackson Street.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay. Mr. Gilbert just came in. This is our city attorney. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert, for coming. Okay, folks, in just a few minutes, I'll ask Mr. Pena maybe to step up and tell us exactly what the ordinance is. He's in charge of the Kentucky Fairness Ordinance. His office is in Frankfort. One other person will have Mr. Pena. You want to talk? Yes, sir. Either one of you.
My name's Dan Buttrell. I moved to Berea about 3 years ago.
Your address, sir?
369 Kings Trace Drive, Berea, Kentucky. I didn't come here tonight because I hate somebody or there's a mistrust or anything like that. I've come here because you're going to vote on something that will affect the children of our town. Jobs come and go, but children are the primary importance. Who's going to decide what is to be said in the public forum? If men had silenced long ago, men who we would not have the America we have today if we silenced people based upon what they thought, felt, or said. I believe that it's the moral lifestyle of every individual isn't decided publicly, it's decided privately. We are now taking the private sector and trying to put it into the face of the public sector. I believe that we have the right as individuals in our community to vote this down if we feel it's harmful, not only to us, but to the future of our city and to the children that will grow up in this city. I have young children, and I know what this type of lifestyle brings. I know what this type of agenda adds up to. And I think just in the answer of common sense, I'm not against the individual. I'm against the idea. And I believe there's a common sense factor that comes into the picture that we have to say, you know, what comes with this? We can do the math, it all adds up. But I believe when it comes down to it, I believe that we have been given the right, and I want my children to have the right to choose morally what is right. But if we put something in their face that says, you have to accept this, they no longer have that right to choose it. So I feel like you need to be given the opportunity to... Am I out of time? Okay, I thought he said I was out of time. I feel like we need to be given the opportunity to be able to voice our opinion. I thank you, councilman, tonight for letting us do that. And I believe I speak for a lot of people that have the same feeling concerning this agenda, that we want not what's best for just us, but for children that I want to grow up in this town and in this community. I hope tonight we can make a decision that'll be what's right. We can't change yesterday and we can't undo bad decisions, but we can together make the right decisions to mold the future and shape the destiny of where our children will live, the schools they will attend, and the places they will play. And I urge you tonight to make the right decision based on what is right. And I believe every person here looks at their own moral identity, and based on their standard of right and wrong, that decision is very, very obvious. Thank you tonight for letting me speak.
Thank you. And we certainly will try our best to make the right decision. You've got a good counsel, I believe. You go over to the mic over there. But we'll certainly try our best to make the right decision.
Sir, if I could.
Yes, sir. Okay, you can go next. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name's Shane Morris. I live at 142 Jason Circle. Just to touch on a little correction, there are only 3 cities in the state of Kentucky that have such a special protection as this. Those being Louisville, Covington, and
Lexington.
Lexington, of course, Lexington.
That's correct.
It's amazing to me that a nonpartisan council would pick such a partisan agenda to drive here. And I'm certainly a firm believer in the community having its voice. But there's more to Berea than that ivory tower right down here. And as a matter of fact, just show of hands, who's against this ordinance? Who is against this ordinance? Sir, ma'am, sir, if you're interested in touching off the culture war in this town, then you'll vote this in. Now, they tried it in the dark of night in Henderson, and there was an uproar there. And I certainly believe that outside that ivory tower, there's a very different opinion on pushing this partisan Democratic agenda. Thank you.
Would you go ahead? I've asked Mr. Pena to be here, and I suppose he will tell us.
Just be able to speak
Yes.
after.
You can stand right there at the mic. Tell us exactly what the ordinance is and what the state's doing and so forth. Now, the mic, the little mic picks it up. The flat one. Just go ahead, talk. It'll get you.
Thank you, City Council Fields. My name is Juan Peña. I'm with the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. I'm a field supervisor. I have been with the Commission over 8 years. I want to make 2 corrections. One, I'm not in charge of human rights. 2, I'm not in charge in the fairness. But I would like to give you a brief description of the work that we do at the Commission, and also the importance why we have proposed to include fairness in the creation of the Berea Civil Rights Commission. As you may know, the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights is responsible for the enforcement of the Kentucky civil rights laws. We do have a jurisdiction to investigate complaints of discrimination in 3 specific areas. 1 is employment, 2 is housing, and 3 is public accommodations. In each area, it has its own protection class. In employment, the protection class are race, color, disability, religion, sex, age, anyone who is 40 years and older, and smoking. Those are the protected class under the employment. In housing is race, color, religion, sex, disability, and family status for any family with children under 18 years old. And in public accommodations means any a business open to the public, either, and it has its own protected class as well, which means that anyone in employment, for example, anyone who feel that she or he has been treated differently because of any of the protected class. For example, if you have been fired, denied that promotion because you smoke, that's illegal. Now, with the fairness, in Kentucky, with exception of 3 cities, that's Louisville, Lexington, and Covington, any employer can legally deny employment to anyone based on their sexual orientation and perception. That means that if you're perceived that you are a homosexual or lesbian, you can be legally denied employment. At my work at the Commission, I receive, because I do intake as well, we do receive calls from citizens across the state of Kentucky who claim that they have been denied employment because of their appearance, perceptions, or their sexual orientation. This ordinance we propose is not only will help or protect those who are homosexuals or lesbians, it protects everyone. I'll share a story that a family experienced in parts of the state. I will not give names, neither the city, for confidential reasons. This family, there was a wife and a husband, 3 kids. They have a kid who was high school. She had already received scholarship to attend university. The father worked in an environment where the homosexuals had the power or the decision-making power in that specific industry, and they were making sexual remarks against this individual who was a straight, in quote, person. Well, he was forced to work in this hostile environment, and finally he was fired. We could not do anything. Well, his father lost his job. They struggle, we know that, to find a job because of this economic crisis, and he and his family had to move to other state. He called me about 3 weeks ago, stating that he has not found a job yet. The situation of the family is getting worse. Again, the daughter who had the scholarship to go to the university could not have another scholarship. Anyway, but again, that's with some time. I will be happy to explain more later on.
All right, there may be questions later. We have a gentleman here from Lexington and one from Covington that has gone through this ordinance. Maybe as time goes by, if we have time, we will ask them how it's going there and what's happening and so forth. Okay. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. You're next. Young lady, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My name is Lisa Vaughn, 1875 Big Hill Road. I am owner and president of ConsultWebs.com, a company headquartered out of Raleigh, North Carolina, but with local offices and around 30 local employees. Many people have offered their thanks, and let me chime in as well and say thank you for the opportunity of the public forum this evening. At a prior city council meeting, I offered some reasons why I believe as a business owner, fairness is good business. Fairness is good business because I believe that it strengthens the quality of life for all residents. Quality of life is an important consideration for businesses and for prospective employees. By supporting employees, our residents, you're in fact supporting our local business community. Fairness is good business because it's expected in today's workplaces and in our communities. 100% of Kentucky Fortune 500 companies offer non-discrimination policies. My company offers a non-discrimination policy that protects all of our employees, and that's good business. And it's good business for the city of Berea to protect all of our residents with a fairness ordinance. Those were a couple of the reasons that I shared previously at the prior city council meeting, but I want to chime in and add one more. We're all familiar with the phrase metropolitan area. Well, a few years ago, a new phrase was designated for micropolitan areas. A micropolitan area is defined by the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, as a, quote, territory that has a high degree of social and economic integration with commuting access to a larger metro area. In short, a micropolitan area was added as a designation to construct a fuller picture of our nation's economic and social growth. So where is Berea on this list of 576 micropolitan areas, again defined by the OMB based on social and economic development? Number 46. 46 out of 576 micropolitan areas in the United States. The OMB believes that Berea is in the top 50 based on its, quote, high degree of social and economic development. As a local business owner, I agree with the OMB. I think that my access to support and local resources for my business is unparalleled in Central Kentucky. And I believe that a fairness ordinance will only further contribute to our high degree of social and economic development. So again, fairness is good business. So let me thank you again for sponsoring the community-wide discussion and encourage the passage of a fairness ordinance. Thank you.
Would you mind telling us which business you're in?
Yes.
What do you do?
What we do?
Yes.
We develop websites and market them online.
I see. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Andrew Walker, and I actually live in Louisville. I'm a representative of Family Foundation. Is it okay if I speak, if I'm not a Berea citizen?
Fine,
okay.
Go ahead.
I'm from Louisville, and I have some numbers from the Louisville Metro Human Relations Commission, their study on the number of discrimination statistics that occurred in 2010. And this is kind of complicated, but please stick with me with the numbers. In 2010, there were 476 intakes, meaning complaints registered with the Louisville Metro Human Relations Commission. Of those 476 intakes, there were 35 instances of people claiming to be discriminated against on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. Of those 476 intakes, 238 complaints, meaning instances of perceived discrimination, were pursued by the Commission. Of those 238 actual instances where the Human Relations Commission pursued further action, there were approximately 16 cases where actual discrimination was believed to have occurred on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. Of the 16 instances where complaints were filed, there was only one instance disclosed on this report where discrimination was confirmed and resolved in a financial settlement. Of those 238 complaints registered in total, approximately 90% of these claims were labeled no probable cause and summarily dismissed. That means out of 476 cases of perceived discrimination, there was only one case where sufficient proof was actually confirmed and penalty warranted. And this is in Louisville, the largest city in Kentucky. And I think one of the arguments for the citizens of Berea is that this is kind of an unnecessary piece of legislation. This is not a mass epidemic. If it's not occurring in mass numbers in Louisville, I doubt it's likely occurring in mass numbers in places like Berea, Kentucky. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Freedom isn't actually fair.
By yourself and address, please.
I am Russ Westbrook, and I am the pastor of New Hope Reformed, currently meeting at the Comfort Inn.
Thank you.
Freedom isn't fair. The foundation for American life is freedom, to pursue life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, that sort of thing. We have to be free. And I am concerned with this kind of proposal because it strikes at the ground rules of freedom. The country is built upon freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association. All of us, no matter who we are, whether we are an atheist, whether we are a homosexual, whether we are a Christian, whether we are a Muslim, whether we are a Hindu, all of us take for granted those ground rules, and we use them every day to pursue life, liberty, property, and happiness. It's not a good deal to be playing with the ground rules. Today, we pass this ordinance, and we please a certain percentage of the population, but we have done damage to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of association. Tomorrow, that damage will be turned around and turned on them. Because once it's okay to play with the ground rules, they're in play. And I don't want them in play. I want to be free. I want to be free to pursue peace and happiness and prosperity. And if I'm going to have that freedom, I have to have the freedom to fail. And people also have to have the freedom to relate to me if we're going to be a free country. So my concern with this ordinance is freedom. Freedom isn't fair. And a stifling fairness isn't free.
Thank you, sir. Very good. Freedom comes with a cost. Yes, sir.
My name is Michael Aldridge. I'm the state director of the ACLU of Kentucky. I live in Louisville. And the constitutional rights have been brought up a lot here, and I'd just like to clarify the fact that basically we're not talking about constitutional rights. The issues here were not granted in the Bill of Rights. And if we're talking about it's not a good deal to play with the ground rules, unfortunately, we've had to play with the ground rules in the history of this nation, or else women would have never had the right to vote, nor Africans. Or actually have had to be codified in state civil rights act. Kentucky should be proud to be the first civil rights act in the South to enact protections in the early 60s. And unfortunately, over the years, we have had to enumerate other protected classes because people have continued to receive discrimination. We have added classes of religion and national origin and sex and gender over time because we realized that adding these protections gave further non-discrimination enforcement to local communities, so that when people feel that they are protected, when it's enumerated in the statutes, then they are more likely to come forward and make these claims. The percentages that you hear about intake and claims being monitored, I can tell you the Commission receives thousands of intake over the years, and we receive thousands of items of intake, and there may be 1% of those items that are actual infringements of a constitutional right or of a civil right. And but that does not mean that we do not need agencies and protections on the books so that people can actually seek retribution, well, not retribution, but have an avenue to people have an avenue for recourse when they have been discriminated against.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a good time maybe to notice these 4 questions up here. If we can focus on those. Does Berea need an ordinance for public civil rights? Do we need an ordinance based on race, religion, national origin, or sex? Do we need an ordinance on sexual orientation? Have you witnessed any incidents of discrimination in Berea? So maybe we can think about those a little bit. If you have witnessed some of this, we'd like to hear about it. Okay, who's next? Gentlemen, go ahead, sir.
My name is Charlie Wilton. I live at 132 Lorraine Court, and I'd like to thank the committee for being here and having this hearing. At the end of the agenda that used to be there, you asked, should we hold another meeting? I'm going to say that's a definite yes. I don't think anyone's ready to vote on anything. There's a lot of people.
We can certainly hold another meeting or two if we need to, if you want another meeting.
There's a lot to talk about.
Sure.
So I'd say definitely we need more of this. And secondly, I'm not sure what exactly we're talking about. I haven't seen a proposed statute. I'd love to see the text so we can all be on the same page with that. I think obviously there's some people have different ideas about what this is about. People talk about the First Amendment and free speech. I don't know of anything that would restrict free speech being proposed. This is about discrimination in employment, in housing, and in public accommodation. That's it. This is not about limiting anyone's free speech. At the March 15th City Council meeting, which I was able to see on the internet, thank you to whoever streams that, Tim Taylor asked two questions. Why do we need an ordinance when laws are already in place to protect people? And will you vote to protect Christian churches and Baptist churches? And let's look at the law. Okay, the laws that we have in place, as Mr. Pena pointed out, we have Kentucky Revised Statute, Chapter 344, to safeguard all individuals within the state from discrimination because of familial status, that is whether you're married or not, race, color, religion. Christians, you're covered. Okay? You're covered. Preferential treatment for religion. Okay? We don't call it preferential treatment, we call it being fair. Because it's wrong to kick someone out of their apartment. It's wrong to fire someone because they're a Christian. And society doesn't work well that way, when people can be fired because of those things. Okay? Society also doesn't function if you can kick someone out of their apartment or if you can fire them because of their sexual orientation. Society doesn't function that way. And we could have a more free society. We could have a more libertarian approach where you're free to discriminate. We tried that. People discriminate. They do discriminate, we know that, and society breaks down. And so we had to pass these laws to protect people because of race and religion and national origin and sex and so on. Also, age 40 and over are protected, as well as a person's qualified status of disability as defined within KRS 344, to protect their interest in personal dignity and freedom from humiliation, to make available to the state their full productive capabilities, to secure the state against domestic strife and unrest, which would menace its democratic institutions, to preserve the public safety, health, and general welfare, and to further the interest, rights, privileges of individuals within the state. I think these are all very noble goals, and I think we strongly benefit from including sexual orientation into this. Also, at the March...
Time's up, yeah.
Time's up. Thank you. Okay. Coming over here. This is your turn.
My name's Lorna Outwater, and I spoke last time, as some of you who probably saw me streamed. And I wanted to correct one thing, and that it got back to me from my nieces because I said that I had a lot of homosexual friends and I was coming out. What I meant by that was I was coming out as being a friend of lots of different kinds of people. Not that I'm gay, because I'm not. I'm straight, but I'm not narrow-minded. So let's look at B up here. I don't have a history degree. My background's in elementary education, but I have read a lot of history, and I have read every argument that has been used here tonight and probably will be used tonight to argue against why we shouldn't discriminate against race, religion, national origin, age, or sex. every one of these, if this was 100 years ago, we'd be debating whether we should be able to, well, we don't want these Negro people in our town, and we don't want to give them special rights. And what about religion? Everyone here who has, and I count myself among you because I am a Christian. I just happen to believe differently than many of you. I don't want to be discriminated against by religion. I don't want to be discriminated against by race. I don't want my national origin to be discriminated against, my age, and certainly not my sex, and that's something that I've lived through in my lifetime. Now, if you don't believe that we don't need a fairness ordinance, no one chooses their race, no one chooses their religion, no one chooses their national origin, no one chooses their age, and no one chooses their sex. And no one chooses their sexual orientation. Now, if you don't believe that, let me ask you.
Hold it just a minute. Let me have a second here. All right, when someone's talking now, let's be sure we understand the rules. Let's listen to them. We'll listen to you. We'll listen to anyone. We don't need to heckle or give someone a hard time. Go ahead.
Thank you. If you don't believe that, let me ask you, when did you decide to be heterosexual? Did you have to make that decision? Did it arrive to you when you were 10 years old or when you were 12?
You want to finish up, please?
When you were
Your time's
8?
up.
I don't think you choose it. It's my opinion, and I think it's backed up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Need your address.
Oh, 104 Pine Street.
Pine Street. Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Crystal Wiley, and I actually spoke the last meeting. I live at 117 Locker Court. And thank you for your words, Lorna. I had to clear up that rumor for you, too. Someone else who asked me. But I spoke on the fairness ordinance at the previous council meeting where I used the golden rule as the basis for my reasoning. As to not risk sounding redundant, I'll just touch on a few points. I'd rather not speak on religion because that should not even be a part of this argument, I feel. Treating all people fairly seems like a no-brainer. My concern for the fairness issue is more of a personal one. I have very close friends from the LGBT community, people I've known since before they knew what being gay was. Being close to them has shown me that how you should be treated should not be based on what you are, but on how you yourself treat others. I think the same principle applies to other groups. I've seen people talk louder and slower to my late Filipino mother because she had an accent. Growing up, I saw that as disrespectful for them to make assumptions about her because of how she looked and sounded. To me, she spoke better English and wrote better English than half the people I know around here. She also knew more about American history than most natural-born citizens. She was crazy about the Kentucky Wildcats, and she loved this country as much as the one from which she came. It's hard living in a society where most people are not like you, so why make it more difficult for the LGBT community to live as others do? Also, I'm a new mother of an amazing baby boy. He turned 11 weeks old today. I now have a special interest in the world in which he will grow. I think when you become a parent, the world seems to turn into a much more dangerous place because you want to protect your children. If my son turns out to be gay or transgendered, I do not want others judging him or mistreating him based on that. Think about your own children. What would you want for them? I think one of my greatest accomplishments as his mother will not be to make sure he's not gay, but to make sure he finds the value of all people, regardless of their sex, race, religion, national origin, as well as sexual orientation and gender identity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is controversial. We all know that. People have different opinions, so you're certainly welcome to say what you would like, as long as it's within reason. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Mickey Bowling, and I live at 925 Cabernet Drive here in Berea. I've been a citizen of Berea about 12 years. And when I heard about this fairness issue, I thought of a picture that I once saw where a teacher had a candy bar, and she had 2 students in the classroom. And she broke the candy bar in 2. One side was about 1 inch longer than the other. She handed that to the boy that she really, really liked and said, "Bite that off." And she said, "Now it's fair." Homosexuality, born that way? Probably. We were all born into sin from our first father, Adam. That's the fact. But does that make it right? Does it make it right if we slander, if we beat, if we rail on homosexuality, homosexuals or transgender people? No, it doesn't make it right. That makes us a sinner. Sin, the same as the homosexual. It's morally, biblically wrong. The gender identity thing that could be invoked in this fairness issue, if it's included, and by the way, gender identity disorder is classified by the American Psychiatric Association as a disorder. They recommend treatment and they give symptoms for that. If you consider that an act of fairness, including that in there, then you may be endorsing actions, lifestyle, choice, and behavior that infringes on the rights of the greater majority. Fairness? Lawsuits no doubt will ensue, and the city, as adjudicator of this issue, will have to bear the burden of the expense of litigation, either in defense or prosecution, whichever it may be. So there is no right way to do a wrong thing. No right way to do a wrong thing at all. So I appeal to your common sense and your knowledge and your wisdom as this board to vote no on this Fairness Act. Fairness? Maybe. Favoritism? Probably. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion. We're getting some very good opinions here and so forth, and we're all respectful, and I do appreciate that. Thank you. Let's continue that way. Yes, sir.
Brandon Rutherford, 510 Lily Rose Lane here in Berea. I want to address some of the bulletins that you've got up on the board. Starting with number B, with letter B. First of all, we're all covered by that as American citizens, because if you look back in history, the reason the Pilgrims landed in Plymouth was for religious freedom. We're all covered under that. That's the reason, that's how our country was founded. Race, national origin, age, or sex, those are covered because none of us have a choice in that. We're either born as male, born as female, born as Indian, as black. You was born in Puerto Rico, America, Canada, wherever. That is not a choice. That is something that is beyond our control, and that is why it is protected. Homosexuality is a choice, plain and simple. That is a choice. Why are we going to...
Yeah, I play tennis.
You play tennis. I don't. I play golf. So it's a choice. So why are we going to protect one class of people and discriminate against others that are not in that lifestyle? I was driving home from work. Part of this is to protect homosexuals from being denied a place to live. Coming home from work, I saw a house for rent. No pets, no smoking. Are we going to include that? Where do we draw the line is what you got to think of. Where do we draw the line of protecting people's rights and choices? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. This is Mr. Fisher, is that correct? From Lexington.
Bishop.
And that mic is not working. Would you stand over there, Mr. Fisher? Now let's find out what happened in Lexington with the ordinance. And also maybe the gentleman from Covington. Maybe you'd say a word or two.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is John C.K. Fisher. I am a field supervisor with the Kentucky Human Rights Commission. I work with Juan Pena. I work out of the Covington office. Juan Pena works out of our main office, which is in Louisville. There's a couple of issues I'd like to address real quickly. The Kentucky Human Rights Commission celebrated our 50th anniversary last year, and we are proud to have been the first Southern state to adopt a Human Rights Commission. In 1966, we're even prouder still to become the first Southern state to have a civil rights law to protect people based on race and gender and national origin, and we later included disability. These laws were adopted because the majority of people were denying the rights of the minority of people. What history has shown us is that our country, our society, our communities are all better when we protect the rights of the minority. Now, Covington adopted a fairness ordinance in 2003, and I am proud to say we have not had one single filing of discrimination. Does that mean that discrimination doesn't occur? No. I think that proves that the ordinance is working, because after we passed the ordinance, we did extensive public relations with all the business owners, with the property owners, with the landlords, people in public accommodations, so they understand what the law is, so that we wouldn't have to bring a lawsuit against them. So to say, well, we can only prove that one case occurred, I hope we never have a discrimination case filed based on sexual orientation. But I am glad that that law is there, because it has made Covington a better place to live. We have had people come to our Human Rights Commission in Covington and tell us that they moved to Covington because of its fairness ordinance, because that tells them that it is a welcoming community, that all people are protected there. And this issue about sexual orientation, and this is not a gay rights issue per se. The ordinance says sexual orientation, of which everyone has one. You can be gay, you can be straight, you can be celibate. The ordinance does not say anything about homosexuality. It says protection on sexual orientation. Now, if we want to be fair about this, let's think about all the rights that are protected. What if someone went to a church member and said, I'm sorry, you're of that certain religion, we don't serve that religion in this restaurant? Or what if somebody went to someone who may be a believer or not a believer and say, well, I'm sorry, we don't hire people of that particular philosophy? The reason why these laws were adopted is so that the minority of people can be protected. And from what we know at the statewide level and at the local level, this does work. Now, where are we at the state level? Every year, there are some people trying to adopt this law and coordinate sexual orientation so that we, the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, can protect people. We had an ordinance, we had a law drawn up in the House this year. We had another ordinance drawn up in the Senate. I'm sorry to say that they didn't pass. Well, we at the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, we encourage local communities to adopt these fairness ordinances. There is no reason to wait until it gets adopted at the state level. We have seen that in Lexington and Louisville and Covington, where these ordinances are adopted, that the population is happier and better protected because of those ordinances. In 2007, the Kentucky Human Rights Commission adopted a resolution urging the General Assembly to adopt fairness ordinance as protection, and we also encourage the governor to sign it when and if that bill is passed. Until then, we as a state agency encourage all local communities to adopt this fairness. Again, once we have learned from history is that when you protect the rights of the minority, you are protecting the rights of the majority. This law will help the people that you're seeking to help. It won't hurt anyone else. That's what history has taught us about human rights laws.
Thank you very much. May I ask you a question? Lexington, Louisville, and Covington, did the citizens vote on this, that passed it? It was a vote. Would you say a couple words, sir? Identify yourself.
I've been a pastor for 35 years. I've never said a couple of words in my life.
We know, we know.
My name is Donald H. Smith, Jr.
Mr. Smith.
And I'm the pastor at the Community of Faith Presbyterian Church in Covington. And for 8 years, I was the chair of the Covington Human Rights Commission when we were going through pretty much what you all are going through right now. Unlike Berea, there is a, I wouldn't say substantial, but a significant gay community in Covington. And when I became chair of the commission and I looked at the ordinance, I realized that it wasn't any different from the state ordinance. In other words, the Commonwealth ordinance. And I really, it got to me, I started thinking about this. Why in the world do we bother to have a local human rights commission if, any time a complaint comes up based on the protected categories that you see up there, we can simply, the city government could simply refer it to the state and the state can take care of it. The state's got a lot more punitive powers than the local human rights commissions and the local commissions have in these cases. And so I thought to myself, well, are we protecting everybody? And it occurred to me that we weren't. People talk about special rights for gay, lesbian people. They got special rights, all right. They got the right to get the heck kicked out of them because they're gay. They got the right to be called all manner of awful names because they're gay. And they also have the special right to lose their job, to get kicked out of where they live, and to be denied a place to go to maybe have a hamburger if the owner perceives that their sexual orientation is different. And so we began a campaign at that point by networking in the community with all the minority groups that we could find. We began by doing house-to-house canvasses, and we were quite surprised to find that about 85 to 90% of the people we canvassed, and I personally canvassed in one of the most conservative areas in Covington, in Latonia, if you're familiar with the area, and close to 90% of the people that we interviewed were perfectly okay with this, but they made sure we understood that they weren't happy about the lifestyle, but they didn't want to see somebody get kicked out of an apartment where they were living, or to get fired from a job that they were otherwise qualified to have, or to be denied public accommodation, which everybody else had. So that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about in Covington. It was really touch and go. I didn't know how the vote was going to go. In April of 2003, we finally, after many hearings, and which many people came forward and discussed how they had been treated because they were gay, and other people came forward and actually came out at these meetings, which, if you have any idea what that means to people who are gay, then you'll understand the incredible courage that required to come out and just say, well, here I am in front of God and everybody, admitting who I am to people who now might not like me or might not approve of me, even though they did before they knew how I was. So we came with fear and trembling to that meeting in April of 2003, and the first guy who voted, Jerry Bamberger, commissioner in Covington, I figured he was a no, but he was a yes. And as soon as he voted, I knew that the thing was going to be unanimous, and it was. It was a 5-0 unanimous vote. And far from being, one gentleman referred to Henderson, far from being reversed by the time the next commission was elected. Last year, we've had this thing in place now for 8 years. Last year, the city commission got together for a press conference in response to the fact that 2 gay men had been beaten up in the Mainstrasse area of Covington and wanted to go on record of zero tolerance. This is not going to happen in our community. I hope it doesn't happen in your community. And I know you do too. I know you do too.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Reverend Smith, are you by any chance Presbyterian?
Yes, I are.
So, all right. That's a compliment.
Love me anyway.
That's a compliment. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead.
My name is Judith Faulkner. I live at 98 Pearl Street. I have been a citizen of the United States for 63 years. I have been a black person for 63 years and a woman for 63 years. I believe that even though there seems to be lots of opposition to the Fairness Ordinance, I can't believe that good, righteous, upstanding folk believe that it is all right for a person 63 years old, a woman, a black person, to be discriminated against after having spent years being a perfectly good citizen of the United States and for the past 11 years being a perfectly good citizen of Berea. I'd like to think that I am not a partisan issue. I would like to think that I am not a special interest. I would like to think that my right to exist and be who I am is neither special nor unique, but that it is my right as a human being to have accommodations, to be able to go into a restaurant, to go into a place of any sort and expect to be treated as I am, a citizen of the United States, in good standing, a citizen of the United States. To have a fairness ordinance in this town would elevate, I think, elevate us, our citizenry, to a point where we would be able to offer protections to people who are being discriminated against. And everyone can sit here and say, well, I would never discriminate against another person. I would never do anything bad to another person, but it does happen. And it's for those instances when people like me are harassed, who are called names from people driving along the street, who have things thrown at them, simply because, you know, sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's because I'm a lesbian, because I'm a black person, or because I'm an old woman, because I am an old woman. And I just like to say, I hope that whatever our differences are on this issue, that we're able to have a civil communication about it without a person, me, being reduced to rhetoric and innuendo. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really haven't prepared to speak, but I'm Ray Turner.
Address, please.
I'm Ray Turner at 203 Morning View here in Berea. I've worked with a lot of different homosexual people, and I think that the fairness issue comes down to a fear issue for a lot of employers. I feel that that we're afraid you can't talk that way because we have to tippy-toe about certain things, and because the perception is that there is a lawsuit pending right around the corner. If you even so much as be perceived as being discriminative against that. And I see this fairness issue as a special privilege or protection to a class of people. I've witnessed discrimination, but as an individual citizen, I've stood up against it. I will tell people exactly how I feel and what I feel, and I will defend people that I disagree with if that's the right thing to do. And I think that as a citizenry, that's our job and duty, that we are to defend anyone that is, you know, discriminated against, be it if they're a woman or older or a different race or a different religion. But I also believe that tolerance is not acceptance. And I think that we need to draw a line. And I think most people here tonight are here for that reason, to draw a line saying that, not that we're against homosexuality, but that we don't agree with it, we don't approve, and to go on just a tad off of what someone else said, that in the workplace, if we had this fairness thing, that it would draw business to Berea. And I think a town and its character is defined by how they sell themselves. And that would seem like, hey, we are to go with this and stuff like that. But, you know, according to what statistic or poll that you're taking, shoot, I'm all for getting a factory in here. All we need is a couple of strip bars and a couple of casinos, according to who you talk to, according to what poll that you're taking. And I am definitely opposed to that, be it on camera or wherever they are. But I think it comes down to an area of fear that we're going to do this fairness thing, that, oh, we've got to do this because if we don't, then they're going to talk about us, or we're going to look uneducated or, you know, backward or something like that. And I think that Berea needs to take a stand and say, you know what, we don't need the fairness issue.
Thank you, sir, very much. Strip bars? We aren't voting on strip bars, are we? Okay. All right. Yes, sir.
I'll vote tomorrow.
Dennis Heisel, live at 1720 Big Hill Road. And I know that a lot of times we gather at these and we're talking about fairness. And to me, discriminatory laws should be anything that is based on something natural. So I want to bring something that's being not from a biblical standpoint, because I know people throw that away, object, or put together, but based, I have a degree in scientific background. And I want to look at this as a natural way that we're looking at this. And I'm going to try to communicate on that thing as a natural and thus acceptable to discriminational laws. I do believe that science has two laws that we can agree on in here. And the first being that of the survival of the fittest. I think we all agree in here that science says that the strong survive and the weak die off. That's just a fact of the truth in nature. But I want to drive that one step further, is that if you're the strongest creature in the world, there's one simple, basic law that demands attention and absolute respect, which is the idea of reproduction. To survive, science states that all living things reproduce naturally one of two ways, either sexually or asexually. Human beings cannot reproduce asexually, which is just a break off of their part, many forms to that, and form. As we are aware, reproduction is the process of generating offspring. In nature, everything reproduces naturally. If you cannot reproduce, you cannot survive. It's an undeniable fact of science. No matter how strong you are, if you cannot reproduce in a natural way, that dies off. You have to get converts. Therein lies my point in this lifestyle. Two males together cannot share genetic information and create an offspring, nor two females together. So to be able to, this is why we're disagreeing on those things. But the only way this can be done is by genetic mutation, of people coming in and working together. Two males can go together, have something to give to a female to be able to bring in, but it's not the sharing of two genetic codes of information or material. A woman, two women together can do that and have a male who donates, but that's the only way. And I have no problem having discrimination laws against anything that is natural. And I know people back, I can hear them laughing and saying now, you cannot reproduce any way naturally. All these other ones are all natural things. Your religion, yes, you're choosing to go through there, but your sexual orientation is something that is a choice. If we cannot reproduce, we as humans die off. There's no idea around this. It's a personal desire or choice. And that's why I have a problem with something being put upon us based on sexual orientation for those laws.
Thank you very much. We're getting some very good comments, people speaking from the heart, and that's very good. Gina.
I'm Gina Chamberlain, and I live at 108 High Street. And, you know, there's a lot of this conversation that I think is interesting conversation, but I want to get back to the point of having protection, saying that you cannot discriminate against people, anyone. And we're talking about discriminating against folks based upon their sexual orientation. And we have a long history of, or protecting people so you can't discriminate against people based upon their sexual orientation. We have a long history of learning that we need to protect certain folks. And I guess when it comes to the fairness versus favoritism, I, as a white woman, a straight white woman, have had favoritism for years. As a white person, I have favoritism. As a straight person, I have favoritism. I don't have people making assumptions about me. I don't have people not allowing me to do certain things. I don't have the harassment that takes place on a regular basis. And I just think we should extend that to everyone. If this wasn't an issue, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. I spent about a year substituting in our school system, and it was amazing how quickly, when it came to name calling, it ended up being around sexual orientation. And the harshest and the cruelest, and there was just these assumptions, and it was really just about name calling. But if that child went home and found out that it was actually legal to discriminate against folks, that sort of legitimizes all of that hatred, all of that discrimination. That's what we're talking about. So I just think that there is discrimination that takes place on a regular basis in many thousands of small ways. And if we don't stand up and say that it is not right to discriminate against folks based upon sexual orientation, then we're basically saying that it's okay to discriminate against people based upon sexual orientation. And I grew up in a small town. I think earlier someone spoke about small town values. And I grew up in a small town, and those values taught me to discriminate. And if I would have learned that it wasn't okay to say you can't not hire or fire someone based upon their sexual orientation. If I would have known that, then I would have had another gauge to check some of that culture that I was raised in. And it took me quite a while to realize that that's that all people are equal and should have the same opportunities, and that these small ways of discriminating do happen, and we need to have an ordinance to say that that's not right.
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. Very good.
My name is Jason Howard, and I'm a citizen of Berea, live at 105 Pearl. I'm a writer, a journalist, and an historian. And so just briefly, I'd like to address what the gentleman here mentioned before about survival of the fittest. I would also like to point out that that logic was also used in Germany in the 1930s and 1940s in favor of a white Aryan race. It was also used to uphold years and years of slavery in the United States. It is archaic, and it does not belong in our country, and it does not belong in Berea. I've lived here in Berea for nearly 3 years, and I'm proud to call it my home. In many ways, I believe that Berea is the moral compass of Eastern Kentucky, a beacon of progressive values that has been guiding the region for nearly 160 years. When Berea College was founded in 1855, it was the first Southern college to welcome both women and African Americans. Since then, both the college and the town have created a community based on social justice. We have taught our young men and women to fight for civil rights in their communities. We have become leaders in the fight for environmental justice, enacting sustainable legislation that has reduced our footprint on this earth. We now must extend this fight for social justice to protect gays and lesbians in our community. I stand before you today not just as a Berean, but as a gay man, one who risks being discriminated against based on my sexual orientation. I did not choose my sexual orientation no more than I chose to be born an Eastern Kentuckian. I am a native Eastern Kentuckian, I am a Christian, and I've held this heritage close to my chest. When I lived outside this region for nearly 6 years, I was occasionally profiled by my accent. Some found it charming, while others scoffed, thinking it a mark of illiteracy and ignorance. I defended our region in those moments, testifying of our rich literary heritage and the hard-working, good-hearted people in our towns and communities. But here, back home in these mountains, I find myself being judged by my sexual orientation, and I have too often been made to feel like an exile in my home region. I have always claimed Eastern Kentucky is my own, and now I feel it must claim me. My region must claim all of us who have felt the pain of discrimination based on our sexual orientation. By establishing this commission and extending these protections, Berea would be building on its history of social justice and fight back against the reactive culture that often prevails in our region, one that is fearful of progress and change. If God is indeed a Kentuckian, as the great William Faulkner wrote, surely he must mourn for our region, for the hate that too often fills our towns and communities.
Thank you. Your time's up, sir. Thank you very much.
I didn't come prepared to speak, but I will speak a few words. My name is Dale Holman. I'm a local pastor in Berea, Kentucky, and I have 2 residences. I'll give the Berea residence for this occasion, 1265 Blue Lick Road, Berea, Kentucky. I'm the least qualified probably to speak of all that I've heard speak tonight. I am, as I say, a local pastor, but I want to just ask us a question tonight. Where is God in all of this? And I want to say to all of us, I know there are many Christians represented here tonight, and as we make decisions, and especially you that are on the panel tonight and you call yourselves a Christian, you must vote the Bible. Anytime that you vote for a politician or make a vote for anything, you must ask yourselves, what does God have to say? Many people that have spoken tonight, they've talked about business, where I came on business for the King. And anytime we're going to vote on anything, we must ask, I don't care about big business. I came on business for the King. And that's the thing we must concern ourselves. Sweet and bitter water does not flow from the same fountain. And I just came to say to you tonight that God calls homosexual activity in His Word an abomination. God will not take to heaven what He has called in His Word abomination. That's right. Get that in your spirit tonight if you don't get anything else that I say. He has called it in His Word unholy, unclean, unnatural, and He will not take to heaven what He has called those things. God bless you. I love you, everyone.
My name is Jim Sheff. I live at 140 East Haytie. I didn't come here tonight planning on speaking. I came here generally in support of the ordinance, and now I'm even more supportive, and I feel compelled to get up here and say why. Especially, I wanted to hear what our community had to say. And, I hear a lot of people being worried about their freedoms, and that's why we need this ordinance, because the only freedom rationally at stake here is the freedom to discriminate. And there's obviously a lot of people here afraid of losing that freedom to discriminate. That's the only freedom connected to this ordinance that you stand to lose at all. And so if you, as a person, as a Christian, consider yourself someone who is not judging and not wanting to discriminate, then you have nothing to fear. And, there's a couple things. I didn't want to get into the abomination thing, but it was, since it's there and a lot of people here obviously feel that way. Leviticus says that shellfish, the Lord said in Leviticus that shellfish is an abomination. So I look forward, because I know nobody here is a hypocrite driven by fear. I know you will all be down protesting Long John Silver's and making sure Berea passes an ordinance to get that abomination out of our town, because I know you're not cherry-picking the Bible to fit your own personal views. The other thing I want to say is I look forward to seeing all these religious leaders who have talked about having a special class working together in the Kentucky State Legislature to get your particular religions removed as a special protected class, because I know you're against special protected classes. I'm sorry if I sound kind of angry, but that's the reality. A lot of the opposition here tends to be based on fear and a misguided sense of the biology of things. Again, the fellow who said he had a scientific background, who understood Darwin, I'm a biologist and I understand some of these things well, and he just, again, I wouldn't go there, but it was brought up talking about how it's unnatural, we need to breed. Well, there's a couple points. One is, if he was actually an evolutionary biologist, he could talk about eusocial behavior in some mammals, where you have organisms that don't breed and never breed, and they work in a communally with the rest of that species and that place for the betterment of that community. Some do not breed. It's called eusocial behavior. Look it up. The other thing is, the animal that we're genetically most closely related to is called the bonobo. It's not actually a chimpanzee. And bonobos are both bisexual and hypersexual and show very little signs of aggression. It may not be the point here, but because it was brought up as a reason saying, well, it's not natural to not breed, well, it is in the natural world if you want to go there. The other thing is, if you choose not to breed, then should we be discriminating against people who choose not to breed? Should those who have vasectomies be considered anti-Christian and not be allowed to be in the community and be fired for that? These are the directions that the reasoning here seems to go in.
Finish your statement,
So,
sir.
anyway, that's my opinion. I'm supportive of it. I think we really, really need it after being here tonight. And I like a lot of you personally. All my neighbors I like personally. And so I'm sorry if anybody takes offense to my words, but I've taken a lot of offense to a lot that I've heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very good to get different opinions. We have had very wide opinions. This is controversial, so let's continue to be respectful for anyone talking. No matter what they say, we're going to listen to them in a respectful way. Yes, sir.
My name is Brandon Helm. I live at 407 Brown Street here in Berea. I'm originally from Austin, Texas, but since I moved to Berea 7 years ago, I have been out about my sexual orientation. I am a gay man. I've had to deal with harassment not only in the workforce, but in school. You can say that sexual orientation, gays, lesbians, etc., are the only ones getting harassed, but that's not true. We have African Americans here in Madison County who are being harassed. Look here in the past couple of months, the Madison County schools, we're allowing Madison County schools to host a rebel run where you have students with rebel flags on their trucks and vehicles driving to and from Berea to Richmond. Why is it that, everybody is just basing this on sexual orientation? This is not just sexual orientation. It's race, religion, sexual orientation, age, etc. like I said, I've had to deal with many forms of harassment. I've had my vehicle boxed in at sporting events, games. When I attended Madison Southern High School, I had students showing up on my front doorstep with knives wanting to fight me. I've informed many of the Berea police about this, and what do? They blew it off. Not everybody in this room knows about the discrimination that goes on because it's just swept under the rug. I've been working to get this fairness ordinance here in Berea, along with one in Richmond, passed. I've also worked with getting stronger anti-bullying bills passed through the House of Representatives. And I just want to say, for all of you parents out there, just think, if your kid did come out to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, and they had to deal with the harassment that I've had to go through, I attempted suicide 15 times, almost succeeded on one of them. How would y'all as parents feel to find out that your kids have been attempting suicide, popping pills, doing anything and everything they can because they did not fit into society and they were being harassed on a daily basis? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Very good. Lady.
My name is Zeta Chef. I live at 140 East Haytai. I just have to say, I have tons of gay friends that attend Foley Middle School and Madison Southern. I mean, they get discriminated against almost every day. I get discriminated against because I'm friends with them even though I'm straight. And I mean, what is wrong with people being different? If they're not like you, what do you have to say about it? You can't change them for who they are. They are who they are, so you just need to leave them be. I mean, it's just like horrible why that people would actually be mean to people for them being gay, for a different color of skin. They are who they are. They can't change that. People are born gay. People are born different colors and different races. I mean, me myself, I'm Jewish. I am of Jewish heritage, and I mean, I get sometimes discriminated against. Like, there's people at Southern that have like Nazi symbols like on their jackets or like carved into their skin, and I just think that is completely wrong. People should not be discriminated against for who they are. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Guy Townsend. I live at 316 Forest Street here in Berea. We have heard once again these self-righteous, self-appointed spokesmen of God selectively quote passages from the Bible as proof of the wickedness and immorality of homosexuality. This has a familiar ring to it, inasmuch as it is the moral equivalent of the rhetoric used by racial bigots in the past century who made similar selective quotations from the Bible to support their specious claims about how their rights were somehow diminished by extending those same rights to people whom they wish to be able to continue to persecute and discriminate against. Let me demonstrate how intellectually bankrupt their position is by quoting from the Word of God, specifically from Exodus 35, 1 and 2. Quote, "These are the words which the Lord hath commanded, that ye should do them. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day you shall have to you a holy day, a Sabbath to rest to the Lord. Whosoever doeth work therein shall be put to death." If, as these people claim, they are opposing this ordinance because of the words of the Bible, then why are they not also calling for the execution of every person in this community who does now, or who has ever worked on Sunday? This is just as much the Word of God as the quotations they point to claim that God is on their side in this issue. I call upon the members of this City Council to adopt an ordinance which makes it unmistakably clear that in this town that John G. Fee founded, bigotry and intolerance and discrimination of any sort simply will not be tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Clyde Miller, 153 Woods Point Drive, Berea, Kentucky. I love living here. Dale, I want to thank you. The truth of it is I'm just a poor white man. Years ago I walked in a bank here and I asked for a small business loan. And the bank officer said, I cannot help you, for you are the wrong color and the wrong sex. I said, so you mean I'm just a poor white boy? He said, yes, I can't help you. And I started to walk out and I turned and I said, well, how much is my property worth in my home? I'll mortgage everything that I have for this business. Well, he said, let's see. So I'm in hawk up to my ears because that is what I am. Freedom is not free, people. If it was, you wouldn't have to legislate everything, but legislating everything will not fix your problems. That does not fix the problem, it creates more. Why don't we allow people to be free to do business with me if they want to, not make them to? Why don't we allow people to have the free decision to make the decisions that they make? I don't hate no one. I'm a Baptist minister here too. God tells me not to hate them, but God tells me to hate sin because I'm trying to pull you out of a car that's on fire burning. I do it because I love you, not because I hate you. But that is the truth of the matter. But you will never legislate all the problems that we have. God can fix the problems that we have. And you want to draw from the Old Testament, and Jesus is the author of that testament. And He told me to love. And He told me to live by His laws and His rules. And I cannot, you wouldn't hire someone to be on this council if they were trying to tear down everything Berea is trying to build up. But you want me to have a pastor that's trying to tear down the very word for which I believe in. And you tell me that I can't do anything about it. Don't force anything on me, sir. Let me be free. Let me choose to go to church where I want to go to church. Let me do business where I want to do business. And if that person does not believe in what I want to, I will not call him no names. I'll go somewhere else to do business. Thank you.
Fair enough. Getting some good opinions. We all have opinions, don't we? It's amazing the Bible is so big and so wide we can look at it, see different things. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jamie Morris, 142 Jason Circle.
You speak up a little bit.
I would like to bring up, if this is the criteria that you are going to use to make your decision, if you look at letter D, it says, have you witnessed any incidents of discrimination in Berea? I think we have a former businessman on the committee. We have a businessman here. I think we have several in the group. And I think that I could probably bet every dime I have that Mr. Little here has never not sold someone a car that wanted it. And I can say the same for Billy. I'm sure that when someone came into his business, because he's a good businessman, he sold, whether it be prescriptions or stuff in his store, he did it because that was good business. As far as the lady that brought up all the business, I think that everyone here would practice good business. They want to make as much money as they can. And as far as the friend over here, I'm not sure, that was Jewish, my husband and I own a townhome that we rent. If a neo-Nazi came in, would you say that I have to rent that to him when I find everything that he does just offensive? But you're saying with this fairness ordinance, why wouldn't I have to? Well, I'm sure the ACL would sue me if I chose not to rent to them. If it's my private home, I can choose who I want to rent to. It is not funded by HUD. It is our home. So if someone came to my home and said, I want to rent your place, but I thought they may have violent tendencies because they have a swastika on their neck, why should I have to rent to them? If I have small children, and I'm sorry, but if two gay men want to rent my home, if I say, you know what, I don't think I want that at my home, I should be able to say no. And this city should not impose anything on its residents that pay taxes and that vote you in and will vote you out.
Amen.
You. Yes, sir.
My name is Perry Williams. I live at 1439 Highway 1016. I'm not a native of Berea. I've been here since '66. I have seen this town for a long while, and I've had the opportunity to view it from the outside. Nonetheless, I just have some questions here. I haven't, whether or not an ordinance is proper, I'm here to learn. Nonetheless, I have some thoughts. Is the discussion or the pushing of this ordinance an instigation of persons native to Berea or persons transient to the community? Mr. Pena, how did you get your job? Was it because of preference, because of your race? Are you a member of any of the other organizations? I'm asking questions. Will persons not belonging to any of the named groups be protected by the rules of the fairness, or must they belong to one of these groups? How will they be protected if they're not named? Does the city council, each member, anticipate that any fairness ordinance which might result from this process and eventually be adopted here in Berea be a well thought out, thoroughly reasoned document specific to the community, or is it to be essentially a canned, fill in the blanks document supplied by persons or groups from the outside who have an agenda other than the actual fairness for individuals? Do members of any named groups become an automatic elite class? How not? Sort of dealing with some comments made by other persons. B seems to be covered by state law. C is a matter of choice, perhaps not. But if we make this ordinance and it turns out that it is indeed a matter of choice, we won't know it until 20 or 40 years down the road, when the comments made by the person there who was saying that about the survival of the fittest, whether or not they're actually born that way or choose to be that way.
Finish up, please, sir.
All right.
One more statement if you want.
Okay. The statement of the young lady who runs the local branch of the Raleigh firm was enlightening. The business made a decision to be fair. That is the way that this should be done. The employees have a choice. If fairness is mandated by an ordinance, there is no choice.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Ed McCurley. I'm also a former Human Rights Commissioner in the state of Kentucky, having served in Bowling Green in the 1970s. The upshot of that is I definitely believe in the work of the Human Rights Commission because it protects many, many people. I also happen to be a local minister serving a church founded by John G. Fee. I want to speak to fairness, but not from a scriptural perspective, because I think we just end up in a debate. Moreover, I don't think it's the City Council's responsibility to make determinations about biblical understanding. Nonetheless, I think it is helpful to remember who is on our council and to consider that it was all that long ago that Mr. Burnside could not have served on council or voted. It wasn't all that long ago that Ms. Kirby or Ms. Farmer could not have served on council or voted. Objections to these matters were rooted in what people said the Bible said. I know that those subhuman Irish people were unwelcome in this country, especially the Irish Catholics, whose faith many said was not acceptable according to the Bible. They weren't welcome in this country as voters, on city councils, or any other place. And a lot of them carried the last name of McCurley. But we've come a long way since the founding of this nation. Africans were brought here, and they weren't people. They were just slaves. Then they got to be 3/5 of a person, and we got past those. We questioned whether women would be responsible citizens. We got past that. We doubted that the Irish were human beings, and we got past that. Each generation, it seems, has been presented with a challenge to decide who is included in this great nation as a full citizen, who should be protected from persecution, and to plug the gaps when we find that citizens are omitted. John G. Fee, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Martin Luther King Jr., and a host of other lesser-known people have had the courage to step forward at pivotal times and in the face of overwhelming odds to stand for and to do what was right and to move us ahead as a fairer, kinder, and more graceful nation. We are at a pivotal time. We are in John G. Fee's yard. I encourage you to stand for what is fair and just and right, to protect all of our citizens, and to move us into the future in the same way that Fee moved his generation into the future.
Well said. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, sir.
My name's Donald R. Wilson. I live at 316 Apache Drive, Paint Lick. I pastor the Full Gospel Outreach Church down on Liberty Avenue, about 100 members down there. And we urge the City Council to vote no on this issue. I have the petition here I'd like to present to you. That's all I've got.
Could we have that? Could we have your petition, please? Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Tony Baugh, and I'm the landlord at 919 and 921 Scavocane Road. I live at 612 Flat Gap Road, Berea, Kentucky. I have lived here for 13 years, and I would like to address you tonight. I thank you for this opportunity. And I was not prepared, but I still, after hearing things said, I believe that there's a reason that I'm here. People are hurting across America. People need love, don't they? Need acceptance. And I'd like to tell you about a gay friend I had whenever I was 16 and 17. I befriended him and trusted him because he befriended me and trusted me. But the problem was, as our relationship grew, he took advantage of me and he molested me. I asked him why he did that, and he said that I look gay. That's what he told me. I asked him why he was gay, and he said, well, my neighbor raped me whenever I was 8 or 9. I don't necessarily believe that 100% of people are hurting, but I know that 99% of you are hurting tonight because we live in America, a land of hurting people. And I want to let you know that even though that happened to me, I love you, but I'm against this ordinance. Because this is why I'm against it. I have never committed adultery on my wife. I want you to know that. But there's no ordinance protecting me in the workplace if I did commit adultery on my wife. There is no ordinance protecting me if I develop a relationship with a coworker in the workplace. But many firms will fire you if you do that, won't they? This is a discriminating agenda that we have here tonight. You're discriminating against us. We may choose to commit some sin, and I believe that we should be punished for that and lose our job if I develop that relationship. But I do not believe in this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've gone the better part of 2 hours. We can have 2 or 3 more if it's okay with you folks. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Evan Abbott.
Would you speak up a little bit?
Evan Abbott, and I'm a widow of Carl Abbott.
And you live
In
at?
1997, he built a little wedding chapel, and he named it Rock of Ages Wedding Chapel. And since that time, we have performed over 400 weddings. We have weddings from Virginia, Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, and one from London, England. If a law like that is passed, it would force me to close that wedding chapel, and I could not do it. I would have to close it, and I'd like for y'all to think it.
We sure will. Thank you, ma'am. We'll have 2 more people, if that's all right. And if we want another meeting, if you would like another meeting, we will sure do that. Okay? Go ahead, sir.
My name is Carl Roberts, and I live here all my life. When I served in the Army for 4 years to give us the right to do this. Yeah. And when I got out, I went down to Parker Seal. They wouldn't give me an application. There was 2 people behind me, and they gave them to them. And right now, in 1969, they from people from out of town, just like now, caused a race riot. And there was 3 black boys that got charged with murder. And who took money up to defend the people here in this town? So we don't need no fairness ordinance. All we need is to love people and let them stay, let them do what they want to. But don't tell me I gotta have rent one. If I like this lady said, I don't want to rent a homosexual if I got a young man, or a lesbian if I got daughters. Why should I have to put them in that place?
Sure.
No, I love them all, but they just, like I said, in '69, the people of this town raised money to defend those boys.
I remember. Thank you. That will do it. Okay, fair enough. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm a guest in Berea. I'm from Richmond, and I'm the chair of the local human rights in Richmond.
Would you speak up a little bit?
I'm the chair of the local human rights in Richmond, and I'm also just a regular citizen that understands that this is an issue that had a lot to do with religion, and understand the fears and the concerns. In differences in opposition, or I guess saying that what the gentleman a little bit ago was saying, America is the best place in the world. That is why people came here. And many people came here because they were running away from persecution in different areas. And even though we don't want to repeat that, and I don't want to disappoint you by saying that I think that equal rights for everybody is fairness for everybody. And religious is respectful. We respect your opinion. We respect my opinion. Our personal opinions matter. But in issues of equal rights and equal opportunities, there has to be a neutral ground. And for clarification, fair housing laws say that anybody who has private property, 1 or 2 small properties, that you own that, and you're not getting any federal money, you have the right to do whatever you want. So these are not rights that are being taken away from any of us. Right. And the rights of anybody who gets any type of tax paying money or federal money, yes. There are these laws that protect all of that, us. So it really is in your hands to decide if local human rights will benefit Berea. I look up to Berea as a role model. I'm from Richmond, and we have difficulties, and there is a long way to go. Plenty of space for growth. And I look up to Berea as a place of liberty and justice. So I just hope that you made the right decision. And I know we cannot be happy all the time about these laws. But you know, in fairness, if we're real Christians, we want to respect everybody's opinion. And in my home, I have my values. But when I'm in the street doing business with people, I have to use the street values. And those are street values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll finish up with this gentleman.
Thank you,
for being their timekeeper.
You'll trust me that I'll take the right time as well. I'll start right now.
3 minutes, buddy.
3
You
minutes.
got 3 minutes.
No, it's all right. I'll just take it's only take 2:30.
All right, go ahead.
My name's Ed Cortez. I live on 104 Leslie Drive. I live in the city of Berea, and I am opposed to the Fairness Act for the several reasons. To enact a Fairness Act would mean that you would have to be fair to all people and not to just a select few. The word fair means that you have to treat all people fairly. That means that you have to be inclusive and treat all alike. You cannot have exclusiveness with fairness. To show favor with a select few in a Fairness Act is not being inclusive but exclusive. If a Fairness Act is imposed by the city, then you need to include all people. You must include all people regardless of their lifestyle and their beliefs. You must include the person that practices their Christian faith or the person that practices witchcraft. You must include the ex-con, the child molester, the homosexual, the lesbian, the drunkard, the smoker, the non-smoker, the person that has dogs and cats and the person who does not have dogs and cats, the person who supports the NAACP and the person that supports the KKK. Any person renting an apartment should not be discriminated just because he or she is what he or she is practicing. For example, if a black person owns some apartments and he rented it out to a white couple, and they chose to have a KKK friends over and hold a rally in their confinements, they don't have the right to be evicted. If they were to practice witchcraft in their apartments, then they should not be evicted just as well as a Christian should not be evicted for having a Bible study in their apartments. The problem with the Fairness Act is that a person owning apartments or complexes or duplexes has to disregard their own values for the sake of the Fairness Act. If the landlord is a Christian and they found out that the renters are practicing witchcrafts, you are asking them to disregard their values. By passing a Fairness Act, you are saying to those that own property, you have no say-so in the matters of who you rent. You do not have any say-so, and therefore you do not have the freedom to rent to whom you wish. If you have to disregard your values to what the city has imposed upon you. I know we're concerned about the rights of those needing a place to live, but we need to be concerned about the rights and values of the landlord. They have the right to rent to a smoker or non-smoker, just like many hotels, when you make reservations, will say that they are a smoke-free hotel, while others will gladly welcome smokers and even those with pets with them. The truth is, each hotel makes the choice to set guidelines as to who they are going to cater to. If they choose to be a smoke-free hotel, that is their right. The truth of the matter is that all people should be treated fairly, but we know that it's not going to happen because all people are biased and have their own values. As a Hispanic, I know what it's like to be discriminated. I've been called wetback, spick, and beaner. But we understand passing a Fairness Act is just not going to happen. It is not up to the City Council to impose fairness. That is up to the individual. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming and giving your honest and sincere opinions. As you can see, it's controversial. We disagree, but we agree to disagree. And maybe in closing, I'd like to thank Mr. Smith, Mr. Pena, and Mr. Fisher for coming, our attorney, and maybe the committee would like to say a few words here at closing. Ms. Kirby.
I would also like to thank everyone who came out tonight and offered opinions. As Truman stated in the beginning, that is our purpose for having these meetings, is to hear opinions about specifically the Human Rights Commission and the inclusion of the possible inclusion of fairness within that. It's been very informative. I thank people for being respectful, and I thank people for sharing their opinions. I know it was difficult for some people, and I appreciate the community that supports people who come and offer opinions, no matter how popular they think they are and no matter how difficult they think they are. So I would like to say that we will have another meeting.
Probably, yeah.
And this discussion is far from over. And it is, as someone said, will it be a cookie-cutter ordinance, or will it actually reflect the community if we have one? Those are the purposes for these meetings and these discussions, is to reflect community values, and that's why this discussion is important, and I want to thank everyone for coming out.
Thank you, Ms. Kirby. Yes, sir, Bill.
I appreciate everybody coming out also. And my mind is not made up, as I'm sure nobody else's is. And we take this very seriously. This is probably the most important decision we'll have to make, whatever we do. And it's not our intention to polarize our community and legislate or impose our wills on other people. So we're going to study it very hard and come to the best resolution, compromise, whatever we can come to. And as I said, it's not over yet. So we got a lot of work to do, and hopefully maybe nobody's going to be happy, and that may be a good thing. I don't know.
We hope so.
We'll see. Thank y'all for coming.
Mr. Gilbert, you want to say anything? Okay. All right, once again, folks, thanks. And this will be on TV tomorrow, 9, 12, 3, and 6, if you want to see it. And if you want another meeting, we probably will have another meeting, and we deeply respect your opinion, your concerns. Thank you. God bless you. The meeting.
Let's have all the council here so they can hear everything.
They will see it. You know what's happening tonight? The Japanese, our sister city, is here. We had to miss a meeting tonight. It was scheduled later than this meeting, and they're meeting right now down at Delta Gas. The Japanese people, our sister city, are here, and we missed that tonight. But they'll probably be here the next time. We have a good council, I'll tell you that, sir. Thank you, folks. Good night.
Thank you.
Bishop, what to say? You want to come in?